Do I think it's going to get better? I think I'm closer to your estimate than some other more optimistic people. I've heard, oh, this time next year, things are going to turn around. I don't know what people think is going to trigger that change that rapidly.
Yeah.
Um, so I think we're in for a long haul, and some of this may never be the same.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to episode 49 of the Sandbox.Space weekly podcast. I'm your host, Chris, joined as always by Pumpkin, who's right here, Baby, who is in my lap, and of course, every week we have a special guest. This week's special guest is specialer than the last. Marcus Cenci. How are you doing, Marcus?
I am doing well on this dark and rainy day.
I know, we were talking before the show that this weather is not your jam.
No, it is not. Cold and wet makes me feel like the old rusty man I am.
Yeah. I just I went to the gym this morning and I was kind of sitting in my car as I was ordering my Starbucks on the phone, and I just didn't have any sound on. I'm like, it's kind of a problem. I'm always listening to something, whether it's YouTube or whatever, and it was just kind of quiet, and I was like hearing the raindrops, and I was like, oh man, this is kind of pleasant. I should live my life without.
I did not want to get out of bed at all. It's like sleep with the windows open so I could just kind of hear the rain, the quiet. Nobody's out there making any noise. I don't want to get up, but I gotta talk to Chris. So I better get up and get moving here eventually.
I know there's terrible things this morning. I almost didn't make it to the gym, but I was like, no, go get up, go to the gym.
Totally blew it off. I told myself I'll do it later, which means I'll do it tomorrow.
Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. I didn't do my run yesterday. I've done my weightlifting twice this week, but I didn't do my run yesterday. So I was like, okay, I need to be good. So Marcus, I'm excited to have you on the show. And we got a lot to talk about today. But before we do that, I just want to talk about you a little bit. You and I have been working together on the gaming accelerator, Shiny XP. You and I have known each other for quite a while. You've helped with GDEX, helped supported Shiny Games Conference, as well as the local community. But for those who don't know about you, do you want to give a just quick little blurb about who you are and what you do?
Sure. I'm a game artist. I've been working in various states of art within the game industry for 23-ish, 24-ish years. Former EA Sports, Madden, NCAA, NASCAR, all the sports kind of stuff. Former Volition, so Saints Row, Red Faction, those kinds of things. And then moved into a studio art director role at Lost Boys, which was at its peak, 400-person co-development studio. So we touched projects like New World, WWE, Tiny Tina, Diablo 4, a lot of jumping in and out and helping people with their projects. And now currently kind of putting the AAA space aside and moving into the indie space, where I founded Troublemaker Game Company, which is me starting off in the indie space and now starting to partner with 3 other people, pretty talented young indie developers too. So currently in the what are we doing phase of things like that. So a lot of experience across just about anything you can think of in art, in the AAA space, and now taking a stab at doing my own thing.
Yeah, man. Well, welcome to the indie world. It's a exciting place to be, I guess.
Different level of stress. That's what I'll say.
Totally. Well, it's been a good time working with you at the accelerator. I think the past couple of weeks we've had some really good conversations about the direction for that, but just seeing the opportunity here in Ohio and the Midwest to support these projects, I think is really exciting. And so, yeah. All right, so I got a couple fun things to talk about, and then of course we're going to talk about layoffs because they just keep rolling in.
Oh, I've got firsthand experience.
Yep. So that's
real fun to rehash that wound.
The exciting things. So the first thing I just kind of want to bring up, just from to showcase this. This is from Forbes. But Astrobot won Game of the Year. I don't know if you followed the Game Awards
You followed the fallout of the Game Awards. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
this is a Forbes article by Caleb Booth, Astrobot Game of the Year, and people are mad.
They are mad.
The reaction to Astrobot winning Game of the Year is a prime example of how the internet and gaming culture can divide people despite their promise as forms of connection. So, what is up with that, Marcus? Why are I actually was not able? I sort of got the highlights of the Game Awards this year because I
Yeah.
just been busy with some personal stuff.
I think we were in meetings
Yeah,
together when the Game Awards were on, so
yeah.
we both probably missed the live broadcast together.
So what's the kerfuffle? Why is everybody losing? Is it because it's a kids game that isn't Elden
I think
Ring?
it's Yeah, I think it's scale. A lot of people are saying things like a game you can beat in 2 hours couldn't possibly be game of the year, which do I care? Not really. I don't know. I think this falls into fandom. People have their favorites. People have, the outlet to talk about their favorites and advocate for their favorites, and then maybe bash their non-favorites. So I don't see this anything different totally than being a fan of a sports team or a film or anything else that you feel passionately about that didn't get the respect you felt it
Yeah.
deserved.
Well, how long to beat
Personally,
says
I have my feelings, but I don't think that like the fallout is anything different than people being shocked by a potential quote unquote upset kind of win, right? Like a game that kind of no one thought had a chance that pulled it off kind of vibe.
what
So
what was your personal feeling on it?
uh, not a game I would personally play, but I'm not typically one to try to tell you what's better than something else, outside of my personal opinion.
Did you have a
Um,
preferred winner for Game of the Year?
Black Myth not being nominated is pretty shocking,
Black Myth
and
was
not
nominated.
winning. Was it? I thought that it was not nominated,
Yeah,
but it
so
didn't
the nominees
win.
are Astrobot, Bellatro, I don't even know what that is, Black Myth, Wukong, Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erd Tree, which had its own set of controversies since that's technically an expansion.
Right.
Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Metaphor Refantasio were the choices.
Yeah. Of the ones I know on that list, there's a lot of obscure stuff. The same way every time Oscar season comes around, there's a movie that's picture of the year. I'm like, I've never
Yeah.
heard of this. Um, it's hard for me as an artist not to look at Black Myth and go, wow, that is the best looking game of the year. So from an
Hmm.
art perspective, I would say that Black Myth would have been my pick by far.
Yeah, I haven't played that, but I know a lot of people speak highly of it.
Oh, it's
I
hard. It's too hard for me. It's too twitchy. I mean, that's too Souls-ish for me. But
Okay.
man, watching my son play through that and just kind of being a fan of the art style,
Yeah.
there's
I
it's
do
hard
think
as an
it's
artist not to appreciate
I
it.
do think it's kind of interesting that two of the games on the selection are pretty challenging games. So
Yeah,
I think that's kind of intriguing. And then I loved Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Like I love that game.
yeah,
So I don't personally that probably would have been my choice, but also I haven't played any of the other ones on here. So
yeah. A lot of those games are they're time sinks, right? Like I think when you're super duper busy, and some of those games are tens, if not hundreds of hours deep.
yeah.
It's hard to really play it in full to really make a call on what's the best. But um, yeah, man, I just really think the world of the Black Myth vibe and look, and I think it's amazing.
So according to Marcus Cenci, this is a travesty. Astrobot should not have won.
I'm outraged. I'm gonna start tweeting about it later.
Yeah. So I haven't played Astrobot, but I did play the one that came out on the launch, the PS5, and
Yeah,
I
me too.
really liked it. I thought it was a really fun, charming, like love letter to PlayStation and video games. I
Yeah,
wouldn't
it
give
definitely
that
has
game of the
old
year,
school
but
vibes to it.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's fine. Like there's nothing wrong with it. Is it, in my opinion, better? No, I don't know. But yeah,
Yeah, I
people are
just
pissed,
yep.
as they always are, right?
Well, that's the thing. People are just angry about everything, right?
Black Myth would have won, and Astrobot people would have been enraged.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of Elden Ring fans out
That
there
is
who are,
true too.
you know. All right, so the next article I found pretty. I want to talk about just because I love Path of Exile. We talked about this a little bit in the
Right.
meeting the other day, but this is from GameSpot. Evan Campbell. Path of Exile 2 passes over 1 million early access players.
It's a lot.
That is. Now, I couldn't find another article for recent, but I think the last I saw, not only did it pass 1 million early access players, which was pretty cool. It's a $30 to get into the early access, but they give you $30 worth of their like in-game currency for microtransactions. So you're really just kind of buying the microtransactions. Or if you've spent, I think it was $480 on Path of Exile 1 over the course of its 13-year existence or whatever, 11-year existence, they would give you a free early access to it. But the other thing is apparently Path of Exile 2 is still also maintaining about somewhere between 450 to 500,000 daily active users since its early access launch, which is, I mean, granted it was,
Crazy.
a week and a half ago, but
Sure.
that's still a lot.
That's pretty good for a launch, and the tail is seeming not to shrink too quickly.
Yeah, it's also going up against Diablo 4's got their new expansion that's coming out, the
Right.
Vessel of Hatred, I think it is. So my sort of question for you, I was just kind of curious. You're not a Path of Exile,
I'm
are
not.
you?
I'm not.
So that Path of Exile is one of my favorite games. I stumbled into it 3 years ago, maybe, when I was looking for kind of like I just wanted like a crunchy, deep game to kind of get involved with. And people were talking about Path of Exile, and I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. And I was sort of lucky enough to kind of just by happenstance bump into a few players that could give me some tips and stuff, and then I was able to kind of get into a guild that could walk you through it because PoE 1, it's an amazing game, but it doesn't tell you shit about what's going on.
Right.
I don't like anything.
Sure.
PoE 2 is a lot better, but still, there's a lot of, I mean, just behind the scenes, like how does crit work or damage convert? Like, how does any of this stuff work,
Right.
right? But I have been loving PoE 2 as a foundation, like as an early access title. This game is like remarkably stable. The foundation is like, you could probably have released this as a game and then
Right.
added an expansion down the road if you wanted to. But I guess my question for you is I'm kind of curious about we've got all these new, geez, pumpkin. Sorry, my cat's all over the place here. We have all these constant conversations about monetization practices and new ways of earning revenue. Obviously, the big conversation over the past year has been the move from $60 to $70 games as the standard. So I'm kind of curious about your thoughts on early access and the maybe what our monetization is going to look like over the next 5 or 10 years.
Right.
Riddle me that, Marcus.
Yeah.
Figure that out for me.
Yeah. I think early access, I think, is a very loaded topic, but I think the way that developers can handle it a little bit better is just being transparent with where the game actually is. I think a lot of people are associating early access with I get to play the final game sooner than everybody else. So similar to how college football 25 came out recently. It's a way for 10 years. It finally comes back and they do an $80 version that everybody got to play 2 weeks earlier than the $60 version. It's literally the same game, but people got to play it earlier. And I think that sort of mentality is a lot of what people expect from early access. And if you're, as a developer, broadcasting that and letting people know, like, hey, this is, we're letting you play it earlier just because, or we're letting you play it earlier to help us figure it out or test it or, fine tune mechanics. Those are two completely different things that if you're
Sure.
honest with the user, have less risk to upset people or just let everyone know the current state of the game. So if they take that approach or the Path of Exile approach where you're getting early access plus all of these great bonuses for participating in it, there's value there to the players. I think when people get upset about early access or beta style games is when they buy a game expecting it to be something, and then they get in there and it is a true alpha or beta state. It's buggy, it's incomplete, it doesn't have the tuning that it needs, and then people were expecting something different. So
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm a big believer in setting expectations in everything, and that is a
sure.
huge expectation when you're charging people money to understand what they're getting for that money. So early access, I think, is great as a developer to help us, test and figure things out. I think it's a bonus to the players, but you have to be honest with where you are in the game, or compensate them in other ways like in-game currency or DLC packs or whatever the hell else they want to give away.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Path of Exile is interesting because the game itself is free, right? So you're kind of paying for the early access. They're giving you the equivalent amount in the in-game currency, and they've said that this early access is probably going to last for 6 to 12 months. Is their current,
Yeah, it
and
sounds like they're doing it right, and that's exactly what I mean. Like when I see that the response to that, and now keeping those people involved, they're not upset about what they paid
yeah,
for, right? You paid for the early access, you're getting what you expected. But some other games, they release and people are expecting a more polished game, and they're not getting it, and then it becomes, sort of that
sure.
fallout outrage kind of reaction to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think like games that are like super complex also benefit from having a little bit of a longer early access window because I mean you can have yeah, I don't know how I think grinding gear games is probably maybe 300 or 400 people. So their QA
Sure.
team is probably what 20, 25, something like that.
Yeah, about that probably.
Yeah, so you're not going to be able to compare, and most of the time, that your internal QA team is not. They're not always checking for balance stuff. They're just checking for bugs and making sure that it works. Like that's what their focus is on.
Sure.
So getting in front of a million people that can actually start running, and I think gamers also don't realize like grinding your games probably has analytics on everything that people are doing, what their builds are, what passives they're checking. They're watching YouTube
Absolutely, yeah.
videos. So they're able to get this giant list of information like what are people playing, what's not working, what's broken, which will allow them to. They've already just in the past week and a half that the game's been out, they've done 5 patches to add and change things to make it more to just make the experience better.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
they
they're seeing the analytics, they're seeing the test results, and they're reacting very quickly. So it sounds very familiar to like an alpha state
yeah
of you're getting QA feedback, you're reacting to that, and then you're putting it back out there
yeah
again. And I think that's kind of the newer trend is, when I came into the industry at EA, we had a tester room that was 3, 4, maybe even 500 people at the peak of alpha, and you just don't really see that anymore. So now QA has become less financially viable for people. So I think that's where a lot of the rise of early access comes, is now you're treating the general public like your QA department. And if you're doing it right, you're listening to it, you're reacting to it, you're setting that expectation again. And I think it can be valuable. But I think part of what we're seeing with a lot of the early access is, the cost of development has gone up so significantly that QA has suffered. And that's some of the
sure
buggier games that have come out are untested. And then there's early access that is trying to replicate some of that older school mentality of like, we've got a whole stable of QA people on our project that are, working hard to test the game.
absolutely. And the other thing that I'm not throwing shade at anybody, but I think we've seen this. We saw this with Baldur's Gate 3, Path of Exile. We're seeing a lot of these, I say, mid-tier studios really excel themselves into the AAA space, and I think they are the content that's in the Path of Exile 2 early access right now. I would say is on par, if not superior, to Diablo 4 in many, many ways, with Blizzard obviously being this giant corporation. So I think we're seeing a lot of sort of like upstarts come into the space, which I think is great because we've been hearing for the past decade that middle tier studios are dead,
Yeah. Well, I
And
think
I don't,
middle tier has moved into where AAA used to be, and now there's quad A and all that kind
yeah.
of stuff.
Well, I
But
haven't seen a quad A game that isn't a shit show yet. So, but
I don't disagree. I think it's just the agility that some of the smaller places, and small is relative now, but
yeah.
the agility is really what I think is happening. I mean, if you look at like Helldivers too, the way that they handle their fan base, the way they're handling success and expansion and growth is just it's everything you want out of a company. And as a user, is like they're not just shoveling shit at us to monetize and to really capture their success and grow. They're like, hey, no, we want to do this the right way. So um I think that's part of where we are as an industry is you've got to be smart, you've got to be agile, you've got to be flexible, and you've got to listen to the fan base, because if you don't, you miss, and a miss means pretty tragic things these days. You don't get a lot of second chances as a studio to recover from a big miss.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I think that having a team that can be nimble, and I don't know how Grinding Gears is set up, but like it would not surprise me if there's a team of like 5 people whose all their job is to just watch videos and find like the little things, the little quality of life things, and go in and change them. Because they've made some pretty significant quality of life changes that probably weren't super difficult to implement, but they did it in like a day or two. And then all of a sudden the game just feels so much better. And so I
Right.
wouldn't be surprised if there's a little hit squad on Grinding Gear Games' side that just listening
Yeah.
to YouTube videos and going in and be like, all right, let's change this real fast.
And that sounds like they've got great project management with change management and put in place to really narrow in on what they're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, we talk a lot about it in the accelerator program about what's the vision for the game. And if you have a strong vision to measure all of that against, it makes those decisions infinitely easier. But if you don't really know what your game is, or you've got this big, giant, slow moving ship and a lot of opinions put into that, making changes like what you're describing becomes so much harder and slower.
Yeah.
So I think if you can stay nimble, you can react pretty quickly. I mean, we're in an era of games where you can make a change and put it out there in hours versus, a disc version of a game that needs a patch and a DLC or a
Oh, sure.
download. And
Yeah.
we're in the era of rapid change, but that means the studio has to be able to embrace that structurally and from a personnel and from a vision standpoint as well.
Yeah, I think it's very clear what the vision for PoE2 was, and one of the things that I've noticed and I like is that they are. We've talked about this before in various settings, but like one of the things I tell my students is like gamers are really good at telling you what they don't like about a game. They are terrible about telling you the solution to it. And I've seen over the past week and a half since the release here is that gamers, people would be complaining about a thing and they'd be like, oh, you should totally be able to do this. And then they would release the patch and they're like, we heard you, we fixed it, but we fixed it in this way. And everyone's like, just kind of like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Like, that's not what we wanted, but it actually is a smarter way. So one of the examples was the enemies in Path of Exile 2 are kind of a lot more nimble and able to surround you. And so players were getting stuck and they couldn't get out of these like hordes of enemies. And they're like, you should be able to dodge roll. They added a dodge roll mechanic. Just everything has to have a From Software dodge roll now.
Of course it does.
But you wouldn't be able to dodge roll out of those groups. And they're like, oh, you should have phasing. You should be able to dodge roll out of enemies. And Path of Exile, they didn't want to do that. They're like, being able situating yourself on the field is an important part of how you handle these encounters. So instead, what they did is when you dodge roll, they moved your collision down to 0 so that if there's even the smallest little gap in between the enemies, you can dodge roll out of them. If they're completely surrounded, you still can't get out. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's kind of a slick way of meeting what they want without ruining your design vision for how encounters go, particularly bosses. Like if you could phase through bosses or you had iframes, like there's no iframes in Path of Exile, then you can cheese a lot of stuff.
Yeah. And it still keeps a level of believability. I mean, by just shrinking like the collision capsule, like there's still collision. I still can't, warp through things. Like there's a level of believability that stays
Yeah.
there. Um, I'm sure it opens them up to all sorts of other problems, which is something else that users don't typically understand is like you fix one thing and the domino effect it creates elsewhere. Like, here's my fix. This is what it should do. It's like, okay, we did that. But now every time you roll, you have a shrunk collision capsule. What else does that create?
Yeah.
Like in the environments or,
Yeah. I
in
think I told
another
you
in
you can. There's a door you can
yeah.
get through
Now
now.
you can
Where
go through cracks in the collision and rocks and things like that.
yeah,
So it's a
yeah. I did it.
very
I did
house
it
of cards mentality when we're making these things.
for sure. Yeah. When they released the patch, and I kind of like flew myself through this door because it's like this caravan that's moving, and I was like, oh, I can walk around the caravan. I was like, I'm playing a hardcore character. I probably shouldn't do this because I might just fall through the floor and die.
Right.
So I got
Yeah.
myself back on the caravan. But
Right.
I see. But yeah, I just I wanted to talk about PoE 2 one because I love it, but also it just seems that it's been a consistent, like nothing but positives since the release of early access. The game is super stable, has a remarkable amount of content for like it's got half of the story acts. There's 3 acts. They're gonna have 6. It's got half the characters. There's 6 classes. They're gonna have 12. They've already added in new skills. They've added in like half a dozen skills in the past week.
Right.
And so just obviously it's not from scratch either. Like they're building off of what they have learned over a decade with Path of Exile 1, but it is a noticeably different game. So I can see the vision, and I'm glad that the vision. Yeah, Cable, I got a haircut. My hair just fell out one day. It was weird.
It's
I,
fascinating.
I had kind of a rough weekend, and so Monday I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go through something different. But sorry, Caleb in chat there. But I guess it, without sounding too cynical here, it sort of just reminds me that there are plenty of good game studios that are they really do care about the product they're making. They do care about the customers they're serving. And they have set themselves up to be successful in that way. And it does offer the question, why can't these larger studios do this? Like Activision Blizzard has no shortage of support and services. And I even like, why the fuck is there no 60 FPS version of Red Dead Redemption 2? Like, what is going on at Rockstar, right? Like, how long would that take them unless something in their engine is pegged to 30 FPS? There's some like internal code thing that would require, like, I don't understand.
I mean,
their
there's a
animation.
lot of reasons why you can't go from 30 to 60. I mean, it's a pretty big jump. I mean, from an art perspective, I mean, you're talking about some pretty heavy optimizations, and you look at the field
Sure.
of view of that game and the density and the foliage and the terrain. Like there's a lot going on in that game that
But
part
we're also
of the dream of that game is the way it looks, and if you reduce the way it looks to hit 60, it's not the same game. So that's a big jump. But
I get that, but
to
we're
your bigger
also
question,
we're 1.5 generations above when that game first came out. Like we have the technical and power. Like you can't.
that's the trade-off, right? Like a lot of the times you're juggling between the game, meaning the mechanics, the feel, the twitch of the game versus the visuals. And some people want a prettier game and some people want a more responsive game.
I think
I
think a PS5 Pro could give you the same graphical fidelity at 60 FPS. I don't know that for sure.
So many legacy assets. Like,
yeah,
I mean,
that's
a legacy game, right? So how much of that is legacy that is built and budgeted, internally budgeted, memory budgeted, not like financial budget, but budgeted towards 30 frames? And if you go, oh, we're going to 60, that's a big deal. I've been a part of games that went from 30 to 60, and it was not fun. It was not a fun process to open every single asset and go in and make really difficult visual decisions with texture memory, poly memory.
I just want a 60 FPS.
I've done it, and
Red Dead 2.
It's hard. I I get it.
That's what I want.
I do too.
If anybody can do it, Rockstar should be able to do it. I just feel like it's
They
like the
should be able to, but I think they would be making sacrifices that are either legacy belt or, visual fidelity,
yeah.
and it's a trade-off that they've made.
I will give them the benefit of the doubt if maybe they've just been dumping all those resources into GTA 6, and GTA 6 is going to be amazing, which will also probably run at 30 FPS. So
Better be amazing for that budget. It better be amazing.
yeah, yeah. I think it's well. Actually, both you and I have experience as teachers for Kyle, and Kyle's working on the motion capture for GTA 6,
Yeah.
which is pretty cool. It's pretty awesome to see because I had him in his first semester at Columbus State, so
Right.
it's really cool seeing a student. I know we're old and curmudgeon-y and we like to gripe about
Yeah.
stuff, but it is cool to see a student really kind of excel into
Oh,
a
absolutely.
place of
I think
excellence like
that's
that.
one of the great things about the stuff we're doing now with the accelerator is like it's that teacher feel without some of the bureaucracy of teaching.
Yeah,
But that mentor teacher vibe, I mean, I really enjoy that aspect of it. And then when you see, one of them go off and do badass things is always great to see and to feel. So,
absolutely.
um, I don't know, that's always been something for me, at least, even internally, when you get a junior artist in a studio and you can kind of mold them and shape them and get them moving and then embrace their talent or accentuate their talent and then they go off and do some great things is always, a plus when you get to this age, I guess.
Yeah. All right. Next up is this has been kind of bouncing around. This is on Kotaku from Ethan Gach. Microsoft says the quiet part out loud about Xbox. They're redefining what it means to be an Xbox fan. So this is from here we are. If I think about it right, we chose the secular growth category. This is completely marketing company speak,
Yeah,
but here we go.
I already don't know what you're saying.
If I think about it right, we chose the secular growth category in entertainment, which we think is gaming, and said, let's double down on it. Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella said in an investor conference last week. And so we said, let's take that joy of gaming everywhere. And that's why even these ads with Xbox now, where we are redefining what it means to be an Xbox fan, it's about being able to enjoy Xbox on all your devices. The line, we are redefining what it means to be an Xbox fan, might play well with shareholders, but it's a potential tinderbox for longtime players unsure of exactly what that means for them.
Yeah.
This includes things like first-party exclusives getting ported to Switch and PlayStation 5, and Game Pass becoming available on more devices through cloud streaming, following quarter after quarter of declining console sales. So, are we seeing the end of Xbox in its traditional sense here? There's been a lot of talk. I don't know if you saw, there was an article earlier this year that Microsoft might be mimicking its PC business model, and that Microsoft won't manufacture the Xbox consoles. They'll create spec sheets that will define what it functions in the Xbox ecosystem,
Right.
and then other like your Asus's or Dells or whoever will now be creating Xbox ready devices. So are we seeing the end of the Xbox the way we kind of think about it?
I don't know what a lot of those words that dude wrote mean,
Yeah, well,
but
that's why he gets paid,
I
$100
mean,
million dollars a year.
do you own an Xbox? Do you have one?
I do not own an Xbox. I
I
I moved from the 360 to the PS4, and then I got a PS5. I do have a Switch, but I don't really play it.
Yeah.
I've just kind of settled on the PlayStation ecosystem.
Yeah, I think we're on the same path. I think the last Xbox I have, oh, I do have one. I have Xbox One, but I think I got that through a studio. I don't think I even bought that. Um, I don't know. It feels like they've been on the decline for quite a while. We used to be exclusive here, pick which games you want to play, and that kind of helped define your system
Mm-hmm.
with a lot of that exclusivity, or with PlayStation sort of dominating the more popular exclusives. I feel like Xbox has been on that decline for a long time. even from a development standpoint, the platforms I used to test on were Xbox. Now everything I've tested on for the last 10 years is PlayStation. I didn't even have an Xbox development kit. So even in the mind of the developers or the projects I've been on, they were PlayStation first.
Yeah.
We would optimize and we would change things for the Xbox because it was a lower common denominator, but most of the artists, most of the programmers and designers were testing, playing daily and developing for PlayStation. So I think in a lot of ways we've been thinking they were on their way down, or it wasn't our primary concern. And now it seems like from a consumer standpoint, there's a lot of metrics that point to like PlayStation has now kicked your ass, and this could be the end.
Yeah.
Might be the end. Sounds like the end.
Yeah, Microsoft
No.
has this tendency to like you see it time and time again where they just get these cool ideas or properties or products and they just don't quite know what to do with them.
Yeah.
I think part of that too. I've said this about the Connect. Like I said this for a long time, but at Multivarious, I think we were the single best Connect developer in Ohio, if not the Midwest, for many years.
Sure.
We did tons of Connect development. Tom has rebuilt that thing from the ground up like multiple times, and we mostly did it in the healthcare space. And it was a really powerful tool and a lot of healthcare uses. And
Great
Microsoft,
piece of hardware.
yeah,
People use it for all sorts of crazy things that aren't Xbox related.
yeah,
Right? It was a
absolutely.
powerful tool that they didn't embrace well at all.
Yeah, and they killed it. I mean, the Windows Phone, same thing. The Zune, the same thing. Like, yeah,
So,
obviously, Rare is a story where it just like you buy one of the best, well-regarded studios in the world, and then it was a couple of years, 2 years, and then people were like,
right.
what the fuck? What did you do to my boy? You know. And I think
Right.
it's just shame because I personally think the video game industry functions the best on like a three-legged stool. I think having the trifecta of three companies in the space has been pretty good, particularly now with Nintendo, since pretty much the Wii has kind of been in its own lane. It's carved out its own space within the gaming industry,
Yep.
so it's not competing on power or anything. And I do have a worry. As much as I like PlayStation, I do remember the late PS2, early PS3 days of Sony,
Yeah.
and they were terrible. They were
They were not
super,
doing great.
yeah, they were just like really, really arrogant. They just they had to make and that's where like when Shuhei Yoshida and then Adam Boyes kind of came and gave it a facelift and made it more approachable and
They had won the first round, and then they kind of sat on the first round, and then the second round with PlayStation 2 and 360, and all of those things started coming. Like they lost the second round, and then they came back in the third round and redid everything. So I think what you're touching on is like competition breeds innovation. Competition breeds, everybody wanting to try to one up each other. And if that competition goes away,
hmm
what are we left with? We're left with one mega power that can sit on their laurels and not really have to innovate because they own the space now. So it is
yeah,
concerning from a user perspective that when you have one, what do they need? Why do they need to change? Why do they need to keep pushing and making new things? Um,
yeah,
so without
absolutely.
that competition, what are we left with?
And we've
Hopefully
seen,
they keep moving and keep innovating, but they might not have a reason to.
yeah, we've seen that the two big things over the past like console generation or so is Sony's opening up for both their exclusives going to PC. That's something Sony never did before. And they have now opened up the Sony platform, the PlayStation platform, to allow more cross-play games than they used to. Like they never used to do cross-play. They were a very
Yeah,
walled garden ecosystem. And then
right.
the other big one is the Xbox Games Pass. Like that is a great value for your money for gamers, but that never would have existed if Xbox wasn't getting their ass kicked right now. They needed to come up with a competitive advantage and
Exactly.
that forced PlayStation again to rework their PlayStation Plus offerings, and so
Absolutely.
the consumers benefited from that. But yeah, I don't know what the world looks like if Xbox as a console device ceases to exist.
Right.
Are we gonna have Games Pass on PlayStation? Like that would be wild.
Or is it going to up in price? Like, are they going to go back and forth, or are we going to have to wait 15 years for the PlayStation 6, right? Like, they don't have a reason to come out with the next gen. They don't have a reason to push forward. So who knows? I don't like the sound of it at
Yeah,
all. But I do like the sound of other devices being developed from the Microsoft perspective. Like, if you're talking about, Acer or whoever else being able to create another console, maybe that is a motivator. Maybe one of those catches fire, but
yeah.
I'm pretty skeptical based on like how Steam Deck came in and didn't really disrupt a whole lot. Um,
I mean,
so who knows? I
do
don't
you
know.
think Microsoft can, like, without getting these good exclusives? I mean, can they, hesitate to say, claw their way back?
Think they would have if they could have.
Yeah,
I don't see that trend. I don't know. It's exclusivity is not something I've thought about in years. Like I said, I haven't bought an Xbox since the 360. So I haven't really even thought about exclusivity mattering because PlayStation had everything I wanted to play. They had the big ones. Then there were one or two things over on the other side of the fence that I was like, I'd play it if it was there, but I'm certainly not going to go buy a console to play it.
yeah.
Um,
There's just something going on in the PlayStation secret sauce lately with their exclusives where they're just making great stuff. I mean, from The Last of Us to Spider-Man to obviously Horizon Zero Dawn came out off of, and that was a surprise hit because Guerrilla Games had been like slamming its head on the Killzone series for what 12 years or something, and just couldn't quite. The Killzone games were
couldn't
fine, but
jump
they were
over
never
it.
like a Halo or anything, right? Like,
Right. Yep.
but they really hit it with the Horizon, which Yua is in our chat. He loves Horizon Zero Dawn, and that's garnered quite a bit of like just customer love. Like people really love that
Yeah,
franchise.
absolutely.
Astrobot Game of the Year, just talked about that. Like,
Right.
and then
Yeah.
there's the rumor that Sony might buy From Software, which would give it all the From Software games. And it does make me wonder when you think about the Activision Blizzard purchase, which was such a gigantic purchase and such a big deal.
Right.
Is it worth the money? I don't see any fucking Activision Blizzard games winning Game of the Year. You know?
I don't think so. I don't know, man. That's a big. It kind of ties back to what we were talking about earlier, which like when you get these mega studios, right? Like innovation is hard when there's so many different customers within the same building, within the same ecosystem. It's hard to innovate. It's hard not for someone to argue, just do what you've been doing and keep printing money
Yeah.
the way they do. Why would they change? I mean, it's hard for me as like from a business perspective to say when you look at their monthly income, why would you do anything? Why would you
Oh, sure.
disrupt that? Right? As a player, yeah, I get it. Like we want change, we want more, we want different. We're not a group of people that like typically just like to sit around and do the same thing over and over and over again. I think most of us are impatient or ADHD enough that we want something new constantly. But from a
Yeah.
business perspective, it's hard to
Well,
argue Activision Blizzard isn't doing what's best for them.
sure. Well, I mean, ultimately, game developers, even the programmers and engineers, like we're a creative people, right? Like any of these engineers, I talk like Tom, my program lead programmer, Tom, like he could go work at like an insurance company and probably make triple what he makes now, but it
Sure.
would probably be mind-numbingly boring, and he'd be stuck in this corporate
Absolutely.
entity. But it is an interesting thing when you sort of have to keep the beast You got to keep shoveling coal into the beast because
Right.
Activision Blizzard just keep the lights on requires that, and that's
Yeah, I mean, there's a level of, you know, fear or a level of concern, I think, even from an indie perspective. Now, I'm not in this space very long, but like the thought, we're talking about this with the people I'm partnering with right now. It's like, what if we hit it? What if we did something big and then that's all we get to do for the next 10 years? Like success breeding repetition is a real thing that um I don't know. I think I would struggle with that,
yeah,
just kind of doing the same thing. I was in the sports world for 7 years, and 7 years was enough for me to go, I think I'm good. I think I've done this. I'm ready for something kind
yeah.
of new. But that fear of like you knock it out of the park and then you got to keep doing it and doing it. You're going to see a lot of that with games. Like what can, some of these guys that are making mega titles do? Like they want the 2, the 3, the 4, the next one. You could be in that loop making the same game for your whole career if you do really, really well, which is not a
Sure.
bad problem in some ways, but creatively, I don't know. For
I
me, it's a little scary.
Yeah, I think the way I kind of look at that is you've got the first sort of step in that process, assuming you can make the hit, right? So let's assume you
Yeah,
can do
of
that.
course. I mean, those are pipe dreams. Like
Yeah.
you make something good enough that people want more of.
But the first step is like you begin to move into that sort of stability world. We're like, okay,
Mhm.
now we are generating revenue month after month consistently. It's really just an expanded version of what happens with a lot of smaller studios where they start doing client work and then the client work brings in money, then they
Yeah,
up their salaries and they're like, well, shit,
right.
now we have to keep doing client work to maintain those salaries. But then you move from stability into, am I going to be doing this for the next 10 years, the same
Yeah,
thing? And then it starts to get, I think for most people who want to get into games for creative reasons, it does begin to, it transitions from sort of like this fulfilling creative activity to like, well, it's a job and it pays well,
and
you
you're
know?
trapped. Like
Yeah.
there's some level of trap. That's the next step. Now I feel trapped and I can't get out of this, and now I'm pinned in this spot.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
Well,
I mean, it's an interesting thing to think about.
for
Success
sure.
breeding some level of contempt at the same time.
Yeah. Well, we're getting a little tight on time and I want to hit the big
Oh,
one, which is the less fun one, but here we go.
okay.
This is the gamesindustry.biz article. What impacts have layoffs had on the games industry over the past 2 years? In-game job CEO Katya Saburovra shares key takeaways from the video game industry. A couple of real fast. Who suffered the most? This anonymous survey gathered 1,800 responses from game industry professionals. The majority were mid-level or higher specialists, 9% junior, 29% middle, 30% senior, 28% lead slash top. Additionally, 19% of respondents had over 10 years of experience in games, so about 1/5 of the thing.
Sure.
In short, these were mostly seasoned professionals. However, among them, some were affected. 15% reported being laid off in the 23-24 era. We would be in that when we were working on our AAA expansion. We got laid off in 23, mid 23. They had already found new jobs, though, so about 15% were able to make that transition. Another 6.2% said they were laid off or remained unemployed at the time of the survey. Altogether, 21.6% of respondents reported experiencing layoffs. And then there's a little graph here of people that were laid off. So there's a lot of information. I'll post it on there. We don't need to dig into it. But as somebody that has been in the industry a while and also, unfortunately, been the subject of some layoffs over the past 5 years, I figured you would be a great guy to talk about this sort of changing industry
Sure.
and where we think it's going. I've said on the show several times that I don't see, me personally, probably at least another 2 or 3 years of kind of this environment we're in before I start to see some changes. But maybe I'm off on that. I don't know. I'm curious your thoughts, Marcus.
Well, I mean, I've been through layoffs my whole career. I've only been affected recently, so it's September. I was laid off for the first time in my career. So it's fresh and it's a wound. all those types of things. Do I think it's going to get better? I think I'm closer to your estimate than some other more optimistic people. I've heard, oh, this time next year, things are going to turn around. I don't know what people think is going to trigger that change that rapidly.
Yeah.
So I think we're in for a long haul, and some of this may never be the same. A lot of this is tied to things outside of the game industry. Some of it is inside the game industry. But both of those things, I think, are kind of out of control of the mid-level, the junior level type of people. So I think until the industry as a whole makes some pretty big changes, I don't know where the light at the end of this awful tunnel really is. Um, some of these things that we're making, like systematically, I feel like the industry is broken. We have a development problem with how we make games, how we approach making games, the scale of games that have become accustomed to the players. So I think user expectation mixed with systematic failures within the companies themselves are creating kind of a cycle of you can't mess up. And then you throw the economy on top of this, and you really have no room for mistakes anywhere in the business. So I don't know, man. I don't feel great about a turnaround. There's
Yeah.
still some things on that obviously are good, but they're becoming fewer and fewer and far between, as far as where do we, pick up the pieces and put them back together in some different shape.
Yeah. The other thing that you and I have talked about this over drinks many times. My worry is this push, particularly here in the United States, is more and more is moving towards contractual 1099 positions, and
Sure.
you're being brought on for, not that there's any stability in the industry even as a W-2, but you no longer are getting your benefits. You're no longer guaranteed. You might be on for 3 months and then you got to bounce to the next thing. And so there's, every time you do a job transition, there's the overhead, and more of that is being shifted onto the individual in a way that I think is greatly problematic. And
Hmm.
some people just aren't built for it, right? Like
Really?
I have enough experience running my own business and sort of being scrappy that I can kind of go and advocate for myself or my company or
Sure.
whatever. But it's still hard when you got to go find a new job, start doing interviews, start doing stuff. And I mean, you told me about some of the interview processes you've been on, where it's like you're having like 6, 7 meetings before.
11. My
Yeah,
last interview session, when I decided I'm never going back, I was 11 interviews deep with the same company, 14 hours of interviews
yeah,
before I was like, no, thank you. I'm kind of done. This is ridiculous. I'm out.
yeah.
Kind
And that's
of
like,
vibe to it. So I've heard some interview nightmare stories, like even down to companies asking for screenshots of people's Steam playlists with number of hours put towards specific types of games as a way to judge their artistic talent.
wait, what?
That seems I have a friend who was in an interview and he was asked to take a screen grab of his Steam account to show what games he's played and how many hours into specific types of games he's
Okay,
played. I guess as a way to understand the game that they were trying to make, or if he played similar genre games or similar artistic style games.
cool.
But that's a practice I've never heard of before,
Yeah.
but I think
Well, that
now
would make
they're
like
able to kind of
Asmongold.
get away with
Yeah.
because people are desperate right now. And that's one of the most invasive interview things I think I've ever heard, but
Yeah. Well,
it
that
exists now in this crazy hiring world we're in.
yeah, and I think that, I mean, that's 11 interviews. I mean, what can't you pick up after the first two or maybe three? And then
Yeah,
also, again,
right,
the
right.
the onus is being put on you, the person looking for the job, which then further puts you. There's already a power dynamic between the person offering the job and the person trying to get the job, and then all this other stuff that you have to do on top of it. And probably what, 11 interviews, they're probably like each at least half an hour, if not an hour, right? So you're looking at six
All
to
of them were an hour.
okay. So
Everyone was an hour plus.
So
Yeah.
yeah, you're at what 12 to 15 hours of just interviewing. It's like your time has a value to it.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah.
and it's just becoming crazy. And then again, you don't have benefits, so like now you got to worry about your health insurance benefits and all that stuff.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
we've always been an industry that is sort of trailing what the film business looked like. I mean, they're a much more mature, a much more established business. And what we're seeing is that very similar approach to how film has always been. You're a contractor on a film, the film ends, now you're looking for work. Games are again following that trend,
yeah,
right? I mean, that's why I didn't go into films. I didn't want that level of instability. Coming out of school, my dream was to be in Hollywood making movies. But I saw how that business ran and I went, "Nah, I don't know if I like that. I like structure." Now, personal career choices now to go indie is working
yeah.
against that. But again, I'm 20 years into it now. I've got
Well,
different things. But
you can
I,
never
I
be
think we're
too
an
old to make
industry that, like, if
mistakes.
you look at the film business, they're usually where we end up landing on a
Yeah.
lot of things. Like they're very similar, very much further ahead. Look at how, you know, blockbusters and summer blockbusters and sequels and franchises have been the film industry for decades. Look where we are now, right? We're doing that exact thing. Everything's a sequel, everything's a franchise. And now, from a workforce perspective, we're jumping into exactly what they're doing. And it's unfortunate and a little scary that we've transitioned away from, full-time stability and big structured studios into this wild west of get people on my project, get them off my project.
Yeah, I also coming as an artist. I do find it. I wear a lot of different hats. I'm a business owner. I do this,
Mhm.
this, and this, but I do find it kind of, I don't know, gross. I guess where we're in a creative industry, which is like you're going and working to help solve a problem. That problem is creating a video game, and that video game requires a lot of sort of basic standard expertise in whatever the field is, but also a tremendous amount of creativity. I'm always saying like we're constantly solving problems. That's really what game development is.
Sure.
And so I do find it really disheartening when you sort of see the revenue numbers, the profit numbers of some of these games, and then also accompanied by a ton of layoffs. It leaves the
Right.
feeling like you've taken these creative people, you squeezed out their creative juices, and then you just like, well, there's the door. Talk to you later. And
I've got what I needed.
yeah, and it feels very it just feels like a violation because so many of us are so excited and want to work in this industry. It does feel like we're being taken advantage of
I,
in noticeable
I agree
ways.
with that. I think if I could summarize kind of how I feel about where we are compared to where I started 20 whatever years ago is when I came in, I felt like we were a business driven by the creative process. We were trying to solve creative problems
Yeah,
with an end product and an end user in mind. Somewhere in that 20 years to now, we are now a business bottom line driven business versus a creative business. And that's to me the fundamental difference of what I see and what I feel. And part of the reasons why I don't want to jump back into that bottom line thinking. But that to me, there's a shift, and I'm not sure where that happened
I'm curious.
along the way, but we've gone from a creative to a business driven model.
Sure, I'm curious how much of that you think is related to like app stores, in-app purchases, digital distribution. You know,
Yes, all of that. Microtransaction monetization was not a word that was thrown around a lot until
yeah,
10 years ago, 5 years. I mean, when did you remember hearing the word
yeah,
monetization
probably about a
as a
decade.
business owner or a creative or an artist? I don't think that was ever part of the high level, like a pillar of a game was never monetization. It was like, here's the creative, here's the narrative, here's the art.
Yeah,
Like it was always those were the pillars. And now pillars seem to be more like, how do we make money off of this? Some of that is trying to survive and keep studios open. You have to think like that. But boy, did we make a big shift as an industry from really trying to create something from nothing to now trying to make money off of that in a different way. So the perspective has changed pretty drastically, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I'm hopeful that this might open up more doors to see more indie studios, mid range studios who are focused on making
Absolutely.
these quality products. You know, more of these Path of Exile type situations. Because yeah, I do agree. I think there's just a lot of there's a lot of focus, and again, coming from a business owner, I get it, but just a lot of focus on like how do we almost like hardline IV drip in the monetization systems into the gamers
Sure.
as quickly as possible.
Without making money, there are no studios, and we don't get to make the cool shit we want to make. But
Yeah,
it's taking that and putting it up front is like kind of what I mean. It's like the first thing we talk about is like, what are the Steam sales? Like, is this a viable market? Is this a viable genre? Like that's the first thing we talk about versus what's the vision for this game? What are we trying to do that's new and creative and unique?
yeah.
Now, the initial conversation is like, what's the market? And that was never the case when I
which
started.
which is wild because the games that we keep talking about, at least within sort of the spheres that I'm in, and even in the business spheres, it's like we talked about From Software a lot, right? Like From Software is built on game first
Sure.
design. Like they've built
Yeah.
this massive.
And
I
their
don't know what.
success proves that that might still be the better way to do it.
Yeah,
Right. So there's companies that do it, but I think when you look at the juggernauts that are not thinking that way, that's what you're feeling is you're feeling the money first versus the creative first.
and this does go back a little bit to the PlayStation thing. I'm glad that PlayStation and Sony right now seem to be focused on design and making quality products, which I think has allowed them to get your Uncharted's and Last of Us and Spider Man's and whatever else, because they are, they let Naughty Dog do whatever they want, within
Yeah.
reason, of
But
course.
that's
But
that's
they've
what I hope comes out of things like the success of Last of Us, especially on the series side, right? Like the series is an argument to say, like, look at this great creative IP, this amazing world we've created. Make sure that that's intact before you start talking about the
yeah,
rest. So my
and not a
hope is that as things
microtransaction in
branch
sight.
out, yeah, right. Well, I mean, I still pay for Max monthly. Is that a microtransaction?
Yeah.
So I'm still paying to watch it. Um, but I think that like the success of that is hopefully influencing some of those other decisions that like the creativity does matter still.
Well, here's hoping, Marcus. We're trying our best out here.
I hope, man. I'm fingers crossed that, things turn around and, we're in that cycle of like every few years, every 5 or 6 years, mega companies come in and gobble up all the mid-level studios and then they don't know what to do with them and then they poop them back out. I mean, we're
Yeah.
in the worst poop out phase of all time, but from that, most of the time, other studios, new IPs start to form and then they become successful. So my hope is that with this massive amount of disruption comes some sort of change and comes some, formation of new people that are on the an unemployment line kind of forming new things and glomming together with a different perspective to say we don't want to be a part of that again, and there is another disruption coming in the next 2 or 3 years once those people can get their legs under them.
Totally. I mean, there
So
is something to be said that, like, even though the juggernauts can make it difficult for new entrants to enter into the space, when the big boys fall, they sometimes fall real hard, and that can,
they fall really hard, but
yeah,
we're
that can,
also in a place where getting your game out there is so much easier than it used to be, so that level of innovation from smaller companies or that disruption can come from marketplace level stuff. So hopefully after this, the shock and awe of the last year and a half settles a little bit, a lot of these, people form and think differently and don't want to head back into that same space and getting games out there that are game first thinking. I really hope that that's what turns all of this around.
Sweet. Well, on that note, man, I think we can wrap up here. Do you have any social media or anything where people can follow you? Or
I have dumped all my social media personally. I mean, it's there. But really, I'm kind of in that transition phase. We've talked a lot about where I was, but where I am right now is kind of transition state. I mean, you can find me on most of the typical platforms, but I don't have a presence there. I'm not tweeting. I'm not posting. I'm pretty low key, heads down, trying to figure out what's next and make some cool shit, and hopefully be a part of that disruption that we've been talking about.
Sure, man.
Yeah, I don't have anything to plug right now.
All right. Well, maybe we'll have you back on the show and we can have a conversation. We've been having
maybe next year we've got a game on the market that I'll be much more enthusiastic to talk.
Awesome. Well, on that note, this has been episode 49 of the Sandbox.Space weekly podcast. Great show. I think we are going to do one smaller show next week, which will be Christmas Day. So I think we might just do a fun hangout. I'm sure a lot of you will be off doing stuff. But we'll see how I feel, I guess. But thank you, everybody, for watching. Of course, I'm Chris. On behalf of Baby, Pumpkin, everybody in the chat, and our special guest, Marcus, I want to thank you all for being here. And we will theoretically see you next week.